It's the third Saturday of the month, which means we are back here for TVGP's Game Club. This time we're talking about the return of the Obra Dinn. Let's talk about our platforms as I introduce everybody. I'm your host, Boston, and playing on the Switch. Joining me, as always, is Moonpier.
Hi there, Xbox One X.
And Musum.
Actually, I meant to buy it on the Switch, and then I bought it on the PS4.
There you go. Okay, so we've got everybody's switching around. All right, let's get all the details of the game out of the way first. Released on October 18th, 2018, published by 3909, developed by Lucas Pope. If you recognize that name, that's the guy who made Papers, Please. Platforms PC, OS X, Xbox One, PS4, and Switch. Time travel here, Metacritic 89, OpenCritic 90. So, the upper limits of what we've seen here on of Game Club. Peers for the release date, the release month of this game, Forza Horizon 4, which is an incredibly fantastic video game. Mega Man 11, Assassin's Creed Odyssey, which everyone should go play. Starlink Battle for Atlas, Soul Calibur 4, and Red Dead Redemption 2. And just a killer month. The question we ask every month is, was Return of the Obra Dinn top of the pile, middle of the pack, or overlooked? Everyone at the same time. Top of the pile.
Yeah.
Yeah. Before we get into the game itself, real quick warning here. I typically don't do this. This one's going to be really spoiler-filled, just because of what the game is.
Yes.
If you're interested in this game, just take a pause here and spend like the 6 hours to go play it, and then come back. The less you know about this going in, the better. So just go play it. It will be well worth your while.
Yeah, I'm gonna guess we all kind of came out of this pretty positively. So yeah, 100%. If you haven't, stop, pause, do whatever, go play the game, and then come back.
Go solve the mystery.
I really hate grand statements, so understand I genuinely mean this. I think this is one of the most original games I've ever played.
Yes.
So,
yep.
I think it's worth your time.
Yeah. Okay. So if you're still here with us, let's talk about Obra Dinn, what we liked, what we didn't like. I sort of struggled to find anything I didn't like in this game, which is kind of the first.
This one.
Okay, great.
I don't like the color options, like the screen and the color options. Like, I get it; it's an ode back to old school consoles and stuff
CRTs.
like that.
Yep. Yeah, they're all. I like that each of the color options are a different type of computer CRTs from like the 80s and the 90s. And I like that there's an LCD option in there, but I feel like there should have been one more option for not something a little more plain, but maybe something a little bit more readable for people that are sort of struggling with like the depth of it.
Crisp would be my chosen word for that, like, because I have a 4K HDR TV.
Yeah.
I had to stick it on the sharp setting, and I had to stick it on like one of the whites, but wasn't fully white, because I have my TV on dark with HDR to a minimum. It's still amazing and beautiful, but if I have very bright lights, like if I turn my backlight up on my television, which increases the value of HDR in games such as Forza Horizon and so on and so forth.
Sure.
If I do that, I can play games for about 10 minutes, and then I get a like skull-splitting migraine. So I have to have everything on lower contrast settings, and it pierced my eyes so much when I first started playing this game.
I mean that's the downside of having sort of an ambitious art style. You know, it reminded me a lot of Mad World on the Wii, where it's sort of like, this is something that a lot of people don't do, and I feel like it's a risk, and I think for some people it runs the risk of not paying off.
I suspect it was done for a pragmatic reason, because I don't.
Studio.
Well, that, and I didn't look up the rating of the game, but I bet they were also trying to avoid a mature rating. And
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Yes,
with
that's
the
fair.
amount of gore in that game, having real colors in it, I think would have been mature.
Yeah, because it's essentially two colors. It is black and it is whatever color you've chosen. I stuck
Yeah.
with the default kind of like not grayscale, but like almost Game Boy kind of yellowish. Whatever that default color was. Hilariously, the sharp graphics option on the Switch shrinks the screen so that the game only takes up about a quarter of the screen. So it's like an old PC game like Doom where you're hitting the minus button so it shrinks the screen until it runs fast enough. It's just like, all right, this is
That's
unusable, but it's kind of funny. Sure, all right. But I only played in
So
handheld mode. I never played in on a TV.
it looks like this actually might have been an M.
Oh, was
Interesting.
it? Okay.
Probably avoided a triple X.
Right, right.
So my only real problems with the game, and I wouldn't say they were problems, they were just whenever someone makes one of these again, probably not Lucas Pope, probably someone else, but like
Mhm.
I like this game style enough, people should, is I could not for the life of me remember the button schemes. Like
Yes.
anytime I wanted to exit the map or go back to a page or any of that, it was just completely forgotten. And that may have been because this is such an original concept for a game that just the language of the tools didn't fully gel with me.
I thought
But
that was just a problem with me because I'm playing on the Switch and all the buttons are like twisted 90 degrees. So it's like, oh, right, I'm X and Y. Oh, okay. I
the
exited out
amount
of
of
the map.
times, the amount of times I meant to close the book and instead flip back to the previous page I was on was
Right.
almost
Which
100%.
is a cool feature, but it's sort of like, all right, now I have to hit B to get back to the previous page. And yeah.
So that's a 3 for 3 on the navigating the book was a problem.
Okay. Like Musum said, not the largest problem in the world. It's just one of those things where it's like throughout. This took me 6.5 hours to 100% it. The entire time, even like in the epilogue, I'm still screwing up the buttons.
Same.
Yeah.
So now that we've pretty much done that, we've talked about the negative.
Yeah.
Shall we talk about how, like Musum said at the start, like this is a very original concept for a game, not an original concept for an idea, because this is the type of stuff I used to love doing when I was a kid. Was these lateral thinking puzzle things where, like Sudoku, here is a piece of information, put other pieces of information you have into the correct spaces to fill out and get the correct answer for these other things that you have. Like this is not a new concept generally in the way of the world.
It reminds me of those logic puzzles I always played as a kid, where it's like there are 10 racers in this race, and this John has a red headband, and it's like, oh, okay, cool. So I just in this grid I fill in John and red, all right, and then I can cross out all the other ones. It very much feels like that.
It's a logic puzzle, but it's a logic puzzle brought to life in such a way that you've never really seen it done before.
We were talking about audiobooks before the show, before we started recording this, and specifically audiobooks that have like a full cast and sound effects and stuff. That's really what Obra Dinn reminded me of, because I didn't, number one, I went into this game knowing so little other than everybody loves it. So I didn't expect there to be voice acting, which in hindsight is sort of funny.
And also necessary.
Yeah, and I didn't expect there to be so much sound design. Like the Obra Dinn herself is quiet when you're walking around as the investigator lady, like in the modern day stuff. But when you're in, like when it has that black screen and when you dive into one of the corpses, like the sound design there was so incredible, where I'm like listening, I have my headphones in, I'm like listening to stuff in the background where it's like, oh, is this, what do I hear in the background? What do I hear creaking and sort of breaking apart back there? Like really, really incredibly designed.
My favorite one of those is the Doom Chapter 1, where the artist gets it because he is in the process of having diarrhea right off the front of the ship. And
Yep.
the first thing you hear when you go in is like,
Yeah.
it's just like, okay. And I sorry, Musa, I totally jumped over you right then.
Yeah. I was just gonna tag onto the sound design thing. It really bothers me that Lucas Pope did this entire game himself because he's so freaking good at like seemingly every level of it. Like the audio cues when you go to a new memory, or the audio cues versus when you don't go to a new memory, or the audio cues after you get 3 lined up, that just immediate black screen with the
doom, doom, doom. Yeah. Like that is probably one of my favorite audio stingers in video game history. Is just like when you get that third match and it just right to black screen and it's like doom, 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 and it goes through your book. And it's so satisfying. And then when it gets to that last page, it plays that little jingle where like the last 3 notes is mark, mark, mark in the book. Like every time was so satisfying.
Yeah.
My favorite one was the watch. When you go into a new memory and there's the spiral blackness into the watch, if you hit A, you cancel that, and it does it like really quick in reverse, and the watch spins backwards and then closes.
Oh, I had no idea. That's super cool. Man. Yeah, I think I sort of fell in love with this game in the first memory, where like the captain is like, I'll give you exactly what you deserve, and that's just that gunshot, and the gunshot happens as soon as the picture comes back, and you're just like, the first thing you do, of course, is you just step to the side, and seeing these dioramas if frozen in time was never, and like they just kept getting better. Like the first time you see the Kraken, where you're just like, what is all this noise? Like, what is breaking wood apart? And then just seeing this giant Kraken like engulfing the ship completely is just like, oh, this game is so good.
And like when you see the Kraken, if you're like me, you're like, man, that's crazy. So this Kraken murdered everyone. I need to figure that out.
Yes. Like, yeah, I'm like, oh, the Kraken did it. Of course. It's like, oh no, that's chapter 4. Okay, this is real bad. And I love going like,
there's spider people, there's mermaids, there's.
Yeah, one of my favorite ones is like, once you get all the memories, one of my favorite ones is like, I think it's like chapter 8 or 9, is the one where it's like, one person murdered the other one. Another person rushed in and murdered them. The person behind them murdered them. It's just like 4 people get murdered, like rapid fire. It's just like, this is, how the hell am I going to figure this out? This guy doesn't even have a face anymore. It just got blasted off by a shotgun. Like, what am I going to do here?
Yeah.
One of the most elated moments I had in this game, like, so I guess to back up, so I played this with my wife. So it was both of us trying to solve puzzles, which was a lot of fun.
I wanted to play this with my wife, but it was too violent for my kid, unfortunately.
Well, I wanted to do the same thing, and my wife said, no, I want to play that by myself, so no spoilers, please.
No.
Fair enough.
Well, just FYI, you will discover troubles in your marriage as both of you want to follow different thought trails at the same time.
Right, but it's like, well, of course it has to be this guy. He was acting shady in the background of the other one.
Like, you will both get epiphanies and hunches at the same time that lead you in opposite directions. It was still a lot of fun to do.
I bet. But my wife and I played The Witness together, and it was very much that. We're just like, all right, you figured this whole thing out. I'm going to let you take care of this whole thing. I think it would have followed a similar sort of path.
Yeah. Man, I forgot the original thing I was going to say, bringing that. Oh, right. My favorite, one of the most elated moments in the video game was, like at some point you're wondering, you see a guy sleeping in a bunk and his arm is slouched over the side, and you see a tattoo of a woman. And then you are just searching for this tattoo on someone in one of these memories, and it's not showing up. And finally, it was just some memory we just rarely gone to. I can't remember if it was one of the random bones you find around the ship, or if it was a memory within.
Yeah, it was the one before the 3 people escaped to Africa. Yeah, he has like his arm out. I had done the reverse
where his arms out because he's stabbing the guy who's trying to get onto the ship to join on with the other people.
Yeah, and like I did the reverse where I saw his arm out and there was a tattoo, and I was like, all right, back to this one where the guy dies during the poker game. I gotta go find out where this dude is, find out what his number tag is on his hammock.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man,
That was there's so many of those moments in this game where it's just like, wait a minute, I feel like I've seen this guy before. Like, I feel like I've seen something that's gonna lead me to one of the ones that really got me was seeing the guy with the turban who has that like scimitar. I'd seen it hanging next to his hammock, and like as soon as I saw that, I was like, "Oh God, now I can figure out who that guy is." And like you see this one clue where sort of everything starts coming together, and it's 100% satisfying each and every time.
Yeah. And there's like the scimitar thing, we didn't even notice. We guessed that guy before that and found it later, and we're like, oh, that could have told us that too.
Yep. The same with me in the pipe for whatever guy was. It's like, his pipe is in the bag next to. All right, that would have been way easier.
That's one of the guys on the 3 boats with the chest.
Yes.
Boy, he literally gets stabbed with one of the giant spear things, and the pipe. He's got the pipe in his mouth, and the next thing it's flying through the air.
Yeah. God, what a great scene where it's just like, oh, I'm diving into this person, and there's just like this chain where one of the few where you're seeing it in order, where you're seeing the whole thing sort of fall apart.
Mm-hmm.
So did you guys think the guy covered in the circle tattoos was the French guy for the majority of the game like us?
Oh,
no.
I struggled with him a lot. It took a long time for me to, number one, figure out who he was, but then number two, specifically figure out that the top men were all in one scene together, pretty much. Yeah. And I could figure out them all from there. And it's just like, well, I'm just an idiot, aren't I?
I feel like there's so many of those that I think it's really interesting that it sounds like between the three of us, we've had different pathways to figuring out the solution on a bunch of these, which I think there isn't just one solution for each one of them. There's so many, like the number of times I used the clothes that people are wearing to figure out their rank, where it's like, oh, they're wearing this specific one, so I know that they're all mates. So like the first, second, third, and fourth crewmen. So it's like, all right, I can at least say that they are of this rank. So then it narrows them down at least a little bit. I think that really speaks to the design of this game, that there's this spider web of information that you're sort of consciously and subconsciously ingesting the whole game and kind of putting it together as it goes.
Yeah. And I got a ton of stuff just via process of elimination. Like, the amount of guesses I made that I had no story or any other information to go on. I was just saying, well, this person was here. They're obviously working this job. They have to be one of these 3 people because these other people are from China.
Exactly.
Is that the Russians you're talking about by any chance? Because I hated those Russians so much.
Yeah.
I don't know that I specify. I don't think I was talking about anything specifically. I was just trying to create an example, but the Russians, we got one of them like real early on, and the other 2 just took forever and a day to figure out.
Me too.
For me, it was them and the midshipmen, the 3 young boys specifically who were all around the cow. I got one of them because he's referenced in that cow.
They like say you've never been on a farm, Charlie, or something like that.
That's exactly what they say, you giant nerd.
And then I didn't. I kept rereading it because I was like, "Oh yeah, it's this Charles guy." Not looking through the full roster, realizing there are 2 Charles, and I had it wrong the entire game. And if I just switched to the other one, would have knocked that guy out way earlier.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Anytime I heard someone's name, we'd go through the list and be like, "Okay, there are 2 Johns. Let's try them both. Okay, some's still up."
Yeah.
And then you get down to, I killed your best friend.
Yeah, that brother one, like all the way at the end, was so good. It's like, oh, now I can figure out the guy from like the very first page. I just got to figure out which one is which with the same last name.
You see, and that was one we did just by trying them both. We're like, we know it has to be one of these. Was it Peter? I feel like it was a Peter.
It's something like that, yeah. And like, you know how they died, so you sort of have most of the info.
Yeah. Man, this is going into this game. Like, so usually when there's a game as critically acclaimed as this, and like I look up a couple pictures, I'm like, that looks fine. Like usually I'm going into it thinking this is gonna suck. I'm not gonna like this as much as everyone else. It's
Right.
gonna make everyone mad. And I adore
2020
this
in
game.
human form, everybody.
Right. I liked Papers, Please, and I didn't really know what to expect. And I think the thing that I liked so much about this game, and one of the reasons why it was sort of like the perfect game at the perfect time, is there's no timer. There's no pressure. Like once you see the memory, the first time you see the memory, of course, it fades out because you have to fill in the book and like you have to do the procedure stuff. But like once you do that, nothing is going to jump out and scare you. Nothing is going to, there's no time, there's no surprises. It's just look at this picture, wander around this environment, solve the mystery, and get the insurance money. Like that's
can we like refer to this as like CSI East India Trading Company or something?
sure, right? CSI Insurance.
It like.
I would play a dozen more games just like this, man.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it is.
Give it 2 more years.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Oh, my game was really inspired by Return of the Obra Dinn. I'm not sure if you guys have played it. But like that would be, I think if you look at something like the Nancy Drew games that are still being made, I think it's really interesting that there are point-and-click murder mysteries that are still being actively made.
Mm-hmm.
But that's kind of not this game. This is kind of this first-person exploring murder mystery thing, and I wish, hopefully there are more things out there, because I would happily play more of these in a heartbeat. But it would be great if it was like sort of a revitalization of a subgenre here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't know that I've ever played a game that made me genuinely feel as much of a detective as this one did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, pulling out the notebook. I had notes on my phone where it's like, oh yeah, this guy's scimitar, yeah.
I have a tablet, and just like anytime I'd spot something
right.
I think was important, I'd just like write it in like my OneNote, and then I'd forget about it, and then 15 hours later I'd make a match, and then I'd look at my notes and be like, well, crap, I made that note 15 hours ago.
Right.
I could have done this a lot sooner if I would have just understood that A plus B equals this connecting dot right here.
Right, like past me almost figured it out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We should have taken notes, and we did not.
Yeah. One of the things I did actually really enjoy is when you got, was it 57 people figured out? Like once you got everybody figured out that you could, except for that like shaded part of that back page.
56, because the
right 56
is 2 and 2, I think.
Yeah.
I really like the game. Very, very clearly says, all right, you're done. Get out of there. Like there's nothing more for you on the Obra Dinn. Like get on out of there. And I really, really like you filling out the paperwork, like leading into the ending, where it's very much like this person died heroically at sea. They'll get 8 pounds. This person abdicated their duties. We're going to send a collections bill for 12 pounds. This person got thrown overboard by a mysterious beast. This person escaped. There's some really good stuff in there, and I feel like this is probably the most controversial part about this game, but I really, really, really loved the ending. I think
you talked about the hidden shaded part of the prologue session.
Yeah, like that very last chapter after you get the monkey's paw, which number one is a really great thing to send. Just I know that he took it from a monkey, but the fact that there's a monkey's paw is really great in the context of this game.
Yeah. Out of curiosity, actually, before we get too much into this, did you make it all the way through to that point as well?
Yeah, we got all 60.
Yeah.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure. I did too.
And I liked that the guy who dies first in the very last chapter was like, someone was like, oh yeah, the captain went under deck and scared it away. And the guy's like, nah, man, like a curse like this just doesn't get lifted. for nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And I really liked the payoff of greed and hubris and folly and all of that sort of came together all at once to kind of put the bow on this. And then there's like that small little explanation of why you can see that shell, like that shiny shell off in the distance a little bit during the modern day stuff.
Yeah.
Just like,
oh, I never even put that together. That's exactly what that is.
Yeah, the mermaid.
To make sure that it gets back, that specifically make sure the Obra Dinn gets back safely. Not any of the people, not any of the crew, not any of that.
Just
make sure the ship gets back safely.
Yep, and the mermaid was there until you solved the mystery, and then left. I just, and my absolute favorite part of this, and I feel like this is where people get so frustrated, is I like that she solves the mystery, she closes the book, and she puts it on the shelf like it's just the end of another workday. Where it's like, another mystery solved, another one tomorrow, let's go. And it's just like, I like that there's not this big like ending. It's just like, all right, another job well done, like dusting off her hands. I'm like, all right, we're good, moving on.
I do like the fact that you get the clue to a name and location of the survivors by getting the bad ending.
Oh, really?
Because if you get the bad ending, like, because you can figure out where the three people on the boat, like the two ladies, the guy with the book, they all survive, but you're not sure exactly where. You can guess roughly where based on the location where they leave on the map.
That's how I did it.
If you leave early, you get the bad ending, which you send the book off, then you get the letter back from that person in this location, telling about how they don't want to talk about the Obra Dinn anymore.
Smart. So it comes from Africa, and you're like, oh, interesting.
She literally is like, it's Miss Emily Becker or whatever it is, one of the two ladies, and it says, me and this doctor, who is the person who you send
the guy with the book and the watch,
and we don't. He's dead. We don't want to talk about this anymore. We're fine here in Africa. We are living landlocked now. Essentially, the less sea for us, the better.
Wow.
And then you obviously, once you've got the ending, you can teleport back to the ship before you've left the ship, and then you can fill in those dots.
That's really clever. Interesting. I just figured it out based on they got in the ship and I didn't see them again. And unlike one of the other ones, the Kraken didn't like knock the boat over.
Didn't flip it off.
Yeah. So like, I'm going to assume that they got to the largest landmass to the right of the ship. Say that worked. All right. Yeah.
Yeah. I think we tried like all the land masses because we were trying the islands near them. And I think I guess Africa was obviously our last try because they gave it to us, but I think it was our third or fourth try we did.
And I actually really like that there's a bunch of fake solutions in the list of things you can choose, where it's like suicide, old age, poison.
Hey, suicide is used once. Thank you.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. That
expired is the old age one. Thank you.
Suicide. This one's funny because I genuinely didn't find that the captain's record. I'm like stepping on his skull bone, like going to see his wife, and I'm just like, oh, excuse me, see you later. I didn't inspect that for probably like 2 or 3 hours, and then I did that one, and I was like, oh, how did I miss this?
Yeah.
Whoops. Literally under my nose.
The one that tripped me up the most is the guy who gets like I guess he gets spiked and then drags himself around the corner of the boat and all the way down the hallway.
And then
he gets speared, but he's also getting shot. And I didn't realize he was one of my last 4.
That was the very last one I got.
We were just going crazy. We're like, okay, Taco Hat guy has to be the third mate or whatever he is.
Right.
This other guy is 100% the... I can't remember what the last 4 were, but like I was fairly confident on the captain's steward,
right?
And it was just anyway.
Yeah, I'm like going back and forth in these windows. It's like, what happened? What happened? He got spiked before, like I saw it. And then I had got the right angle where it's like that one goofy looking dude shot, and I see it go right past the spider into the wall. It's like, yeah, all right, there it is. The one I had a really hard time with was the one guy that looks like he got crushed by a cannon, but the Kraken actually fired the cannon, which shot that guy out of the ship. And like that was, I think, my second to last one, right before that other guy. And I was like, I don't understand, where did this guy go? He disappeared. And I was like, oh, I wonder if the Kraken did it. And it did. And I was like, yeah, awesome.
There is 1 or 2 people who die by being shot by a cannon in this.
Yep.
And it's a specific crewmate who has the tinder who lights the 2 cannons, I think it is. And the funny thing is, the game accepts shot by cannon by that crewmate or by a beast.
Yes.
As the correct answer. It accepts both of them.
Yeah.
He's the one who lit it, but he lit it because of the beast. So it does
Right.
actually accept both of them pretty smoothly.
Yeah, it's
I
nice
did the
that
cannon by Kraken on that one.
Yeah, it's nice that a bunch of them, there's like wiggle room, because some of them are like they got speared by a beast or they got spiked by a beast. Those are kind of acceptable either way for some of them. It's nice that there's a little bit of wiggle room for a bunch of them.
Yeah.
Do you know my favorite one that's a wiggle room one? The guy who's getting shot for killing the other dude who's innocent. So he's on the rope. He's getting shot by firing crew.
Yeah.
There is one specific person in that firing crew who actually hits him.
Yep.
You don't find out his name till much later on. The game accepts the captain as a cause of death.
Oh wow,
Because
that's crazy.
Gave the order to fire the shots.
Oh man, I love this game so much.
So did you guys go back and get the Captain Did It trophy?
Yes, I
No,
did.
because I was on Switch.
Which is one of my favorite things ever, because it's literally the Captain Did It is the name of the achievement / trophy, and the description is loosely true in the eyes of company and crown.
And that's the one where you say that the captain killed everybody, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
100%.
That's great.
Easiest way to do it as well. You don't even need to identify people. You can just go through all the memories again, which I did while playing mobile games. So I went into the memory, let the timer run down, spiraled down. Captain axed. This person, this unknown soul, was axed by the captain, because then I made sure I never got anything right, because nobody gets axed.
Ah, sure. Okay. Interesting.
And I just did that for every single memory, got off the ship, and it was like, Captain did it. I was like, cool.
Man.
Yeah, I've been meaning to do it. I just figured it'd probably take an hour or something.
Yeah, it takes a little bit of time. It's perfect Marvel Strike Force time, just saying.
There you go. Oh, man. So for my last note here for the game, I was expecting to like this, but I think this is easily one of my favorite games of all time. It's just, I think it does everything right. It is a game that's really made for me. Every element works in concert with everything else, and it's just, I feel like if the mystery wasn't interesting, if the voice acting wasn't cool, if the solutions weren't a little bit loose, if you couldn't kind of have a couple of solutions, if it was really rigid, I feel like it wouldn't be as great. But especially with us talking about all these different ways we solved all these different puzzles, I think this is Moon and I were talking about required reading here recently. Video game required reading is essentially games you need to play if you're interested in gaming or how games are made or the history of games or something. I think Obra Dinn is absolutely required reading, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. One thing we didn't talk about that we always do is the music, the jaunty pirate music, which barely exists in the game except for a couple of overtures and undertures here and there when it's when
like each chapter has
but I didn't miss the music. Like I didn't have like a regret for a lack of music, but also I thought that the stuff that they put in there was very well toned to the actual game as a whole.
Yeah.
Like I'm fine listening to the slight boat rock and the breeze while I'm trying to solve something. And then when I go into a memory where chaos and anarchy is happening, listening to that whatever jingle they've come up with to signify that specific scene. Like, I think it was really well done. Like,
yeah,
full credit.
I adored the music to the game. It's crazy to me that, like, I mean, what was Lucas Pope at Naughty Dog? Like a level designer or tools designer or something like that?
Something like that, yeah, like on that end.
It is crazy to me that this guy is so good at sound design and doing the soundtrack, and he used these, like, sampled strings that he played with it, like, so it had that, like, it's sometimes my brain was thinking, oh, this is a real string, but it's, for the most part, he's just using kind of a slightly crappy string sample to play it all, which I thought was really cool, especially with the game's aesthetic. I thought it did well, but my wife and I just adored the music to the game.
It's really good. Yeah.
I mean, to this day, it still bothers me that I did not give What Remains of Edith Finch my game of the year that year.
Yep.
And it bothers me because that is a game that has lived on in my memory so much stronger than any other game that came out that year. Period. Nothing from that year has compared to how much that game has lived on with me in my own head. People say, talking about the whole required reading thing, what games made you cry? What games made you feel emotional? What game has just absorbed you in and sucked you in and made you not want to do it?
BioShock's Twist, like all these sort of the usuals.
Yeah, but for me, it's like What Remains of Edith Finch. Like, it's one of those games that will probably forever live on in my head.
I'll never forget the cannery level.
Yeah,
like
one of the best sequences in gaming, period.
Yeah, it's incredible.
And it feels to me like I have done myself a disservice by not playing this last year, where it would have immediately jumped onto my top 10 list, if not being top of that list.
Yeah. Thinking the same thing like halfway through this game, was like, man, I should have listened to Danny O'Dwyer and just fired this up when it came out and just played it.
Caravella.
Yeah.
Like, everybody whose opinion I trust in video games was saying, play Obra Dinn.
Yep. Don't look at anything and go play it. Sorry.
Have you guys tried describing this game to your fellow video game friends who don't pay any attention to news or critics?
No.
It is so ridiculously hard.
The friends I have like that are you two and the TVGP community.
Right. You're already listening.
Yeah,
I was trying to explain it to my wife because this is a game that I think she would really like, and I'm going to try and encourage her to pick it up on her Switch at some point. I told her that it's a really low stress murder mystery game where you just 60 people boarded the Obra Dinn, and later on the Obra Dinn came back empty, and you need to figure out what happened. And like at that point, that's really all I want them to know. It's just like, you need to go play this game. It's like $15. I beat it in under 7 hours. Had a blast, and I'm glad I didn't know more about it.
Yeah. It's ugh.
It's incredible.
I have a couple friends, like my friend Joey from the Carousel. I've been trying to get him to play it, and there's a guy at my work who's plays games, and every time I'm like, okay, this isn't anything like anything you've played before.
Right. It's not a first-person shooter, or like a third-person cover shooter or anything.
Like, I'm going to start to describe it, and you're going to think it's like something you played before, and let me assure you it's not.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, for me, it's like, it's one of those things where it's like, the only other person I can think of who I might recommend this to would be M, like, who I play Apex and things like that with, but it's like, I don't know if this is in her wheelhouse, because this is such a unique game.
Yeah, you have to recommend it to someone that is willing to sort of try something sight unseen. Like, do they bristle when you say like, oh, this movie is really great, but like, I don't want to tell you anything about it because I don't want to ruin it or whatever? Like, do they sort of go like, oh man, I don't know, like, I don't, maybe I'll watch a trailer. It's like, no. If they bristle at that stuff, then maybe Obra Dinn isn't the right game for them.
Yeah.
I feel like Obra Dinn probably has a wider appeal than than maybe we might give it credit for. But
Oh,
I
sure.
also feel like
I think
talking the average person into playing it is going to be very difficult.
Yeah.
I think that's the thing is if you can put hands in controllers, butts in seats, however you want to phrase it.
Yep.
Controllers in hands, I probably should have said rather than the other way around, because that's a bit of a weird
Butts
thing.
and hands. Yep.
If you can do that with this game, I think people get it like immediately. Like as
Yep.
soon as I started playing it, it was like, I mean,
Yeah.
Boston said on like TVGP proper, like the day he started it, he'd lost basically 5 days of like games because he just couldn't play anything other than this.
Yeah, like it would just sat right in my brain where it's like, I'm not playing it. I'm sitting there like coloring with my kid, and I'm like, yeah, but like, how many people shot him when he's hanging on that rope? Like, I can't accuse 4 people. Wait, that must mean there's one. Oh, okay. I'm just like chewing on it all day. It
Next
just
thing you know, there's Care Bears that are getting killed by Kraken, and you're just like, what have I done?
right.
Go away, child.
Don't look at the paper. Yeah, no, I agree. I think there's something about a lot of people where if a mystery, especially a murder mystery, is put in front of you, you're sort of like, yeah, but like who did it? Like why is this captain shooting these people? Oh, well, I guess that is the captain because they're talking to him. Okay, cool. And it's like you get that little like first hit right away, and you're like, yeah, but like, how do I find out the other guys? Oh, there's another corpse. Okay.
Yeah, it's the elevator pitch conundrum. It's like,
Yes.
you can absolutely adore something, but how do you explain that to someone in 20 seconds or less?
Right.
Like this, Dune, the Dune, because everybody seems to not get my pronunciation when I say that word.
Right.
The books, and Nightwatch, the series. Like, how do you explain these things to people in 10 seconds or less that's going to get them interested in it?
Mm-hmm.
It's really difficult to do.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Any last thoughts here about Obra Dinn?
Go play it. Spoiler alert for my game of the year this year. Best old game, Over Dinn.
Yeah, sort of. Ranking for this year probably will be pretty easy on the top end of the rankings.
Yeah.
Well, the good news is we've got number 1 and we've got number 12.
That's right. Super easy. We just got to fill in the middle. Yeah.
Just a bipolar set of podcasts from this month.
That's right.
The last.
That's right. All right, well, let's talk about our next game. We have chosen, the three of us have chosen The Sexy Brutale, Brutale. Came out at PC, PS4, Xbox One, and Switch. Speaking of murder mysteries, might as well just sort of keep this rolling with yet another one, but this time, time travel, potentially.
Cool.
Yeah, so we'll be playing The Sexy Brutale for the next month. Thank you very much, everyone, for listening. And we'll see you next month. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, boy.